What to do when shit hits the fan. Many times when we are training, things don't really go how we expected. So something that everyone asks me, and is such a great question, is what do I do if my dog does something that I don't want my dog to do? So we humans, we use language to communicate, and we have this habit of telling the other person when a behavior is not right or when we don't like a certain behavior. But what about our dogs? How do we do that? Do we have to do that? So let me show you from the scientific approach what can we do and how is the best way to solve this situation.
So if we're talking about behavior, we need to talk about consequences, right? And things that come before the consequences are called antecedents. And for every behavior, we're going to have a consequence and we're going to have an antecedent. Every single one, okay? Every single behavior. You cannot behave without consequence. So for example, let's take something very trivial that is going to illustrate this very well. For example, let's say that you are hungry and you go and eat something. So you're hungry is an antecedent, and then you go and you eat something is a behavior, and then the consequence is that you feel satiated. So we could talk about, for example, training. So with training, the antecedent would be you say a cue. Your dog understands what you want them to do. They're going to perform a behavior, and then the consequence going to be that you're going to give a treat, right? So we can have, I'm going to use a very slack language here, which is going to be good behavior and bad behavior, but behaviors that you want, behaviors you don't want, okay? So behaviors you want, when you see a behavior you want, you give a good consequence to your dog, a reinforcer, a treat, a toy, and what happens is that you hopefully increase the behavior, right? And if you have a behavior you don't want, what do you do with that? That is what I'm going to explore with you guys today. So basically, we have two options. We can work here or we can work here, right? If we go this way and we give a bad consequence, we might make this dog stop, decrease the behavior. Problem with this is called punishment. And punishment increases anxiety, destroy your relationship with your dog, and it's not very nice for anyone. So I don't use punishment. So I don't go this way, right? So I don't go this route. So let's erase everything. And I'm going to show you the route that I go, so you guys can understand. And it's going to make more sense. So let's think that we're not going to go in that route. We're going to find a better route to show my dog that my dog cannot do this thing that my dog is doing. So let's say that this is the behavior. Let's work with every single behavior, okay? We are generalizing here. You're just going to have to understand the theory correctly so you can apply this in a way that's going to work for your dog in your specific situation, okay? So the antecedent is something that happens before your dog behaves in a certain way and kind of cue your dog to do something. So let's say that one antecedent could be you sit on dinner table to eat, okay? And when you sit on the dinner table, your dog barks. And the consequence, we're not going to think about consequences now, okay? We're going to think about antecedents first. So what I'm thinking here is, how can I change this antecedent so my dog doesn't feel like he needs to bark at me? So I can change the configuration of what I do, my plan, in order to change the antecedent, to change my dog's behavior. Okay? So this is gold, guys. Planning is gold. If you know how to plan, you don't have to use punishment. If you don't know how to plan, you will see yourself in a bad situation, like the barking, and you feel like you need to tell your dog off because that is not an acceptable behavior. But that just told me that I could have planned this a little bit better and organized myself a little bit better. So is that fair for me to punish my dog that knows absolutely nothing about society and how are the rules and how they need to behave in our crazy way that we live inside houses and we sit in table suites and we have ovens? So it's all very different for them, what would be very natural for them in the streets, right? So I can think about changing my plan, changing how I'm going to organize my life so my dog doesn't bark at me. So one thing that I can do is to, maybe I'm going to put my dog with the kids in the living room because they're going to be watching some TV with an adult to supervise all of them. And now I'm going to show you from another perspective, which is we have the behavior here. Okay, what about if I plan, but my plan didn't go how I expected to go, and now I do have the problem behavior that I had in the past that I don't want to reinforce, and it happened. What do I do? What do I do in this situation? Because this is the question, right? We can do our best to plan, but not always things gonna go accordingly. So we need to have a plan B. And our plan B will rely on consequences. Right? So this is when people get it wrong. People think that this means ignore. People think that this means punish. Say no out loud. Say in a very firm voice. Scare the dog. People think that this means removing things from the dog. I'm going to put here as well the saying no. Okay, so those are all negative consequences in order to stop a behavior. Okay? All those things that you're trying to do to stop a behavior, they are punishment. There is no way around it. They are punishment. Okay? Not all reinforcing strategies are good, and I don't really like using punishment as strategies as well. So what I'm going to tell you now is how I normally behave in those situations. What I normally do is I don't give a strong consequence. I don't try to tell my dog that that was wrong or that was upsetting or that was inappropriate. So I use something which is called less reinforcing response. Okay? This means that I will not tell my dog off. No telling off. Okay? No punishing, no saying no, no removing, no ignoring. I will redirect my dog to something more appropriate. And this is when we get it wrong again. Because here, people give food. People ask the dog to go down, to go on the floor. People ask people to sit down. People ask dogs to do things. And what they have in the end is this chain. And I'm going to show you how it works when we have a chain behavior. And a chain behavior means that the dog behaves. And then the dog behaves again. And the dog behaves. And the dog behaves again. And then I'm going to reinforce. I'm going to give some food. For example, right? And what the dog learns is not this. Is this. My plus this. Plus this. Results in this. Right? So, ignoring. The dog barks. You ignore. And then the dog decides to jump. And then you ignore again. And the dog decides to bite. Play bite. Maybe use leaves. And then you ignore again. And at some point, you're going to say, I can't anymore. I just can't. I can't deal with this. And then you're going to end up reinforcing that. So what happens is that you are reinforcing the whole chain. Okay? Or let me put it in another way, because it could happen in another way. It could happen that the dog gonna jump. You will say floor. The dog goes on the floor. The dog jumps. And you say floor. And then you reinforce. Maybe you're going to reinforce here as well. And you creating this cycle of jumping, going on the floor and getting some food. And this becomes a chain. One thing happens after the other. Okay, so what means the less reinforcing response? What means that then? If we're not using food, if we are redirecting our dogs, what do I mean with that? That could mean loads of things, right? This is used in training as a 3 seconds break when a dog makes a mistake. And this is from a research from Ken Ramirez that did a really nice work with this and find out that this 3 seconds break can actually help the dog to not chain things, right? So the dog not going to do this plus, 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 and reinforcement in the end. The dog actually going to understand that it wasn't reinforced for that one. And then you're going to cue something else and you're going to reinforce that something else. So the break helps them to understand that that was a not reinforced response, right? When we do that, we're being very humane. It's we being very kind in our training. We are not telling the dog, you shouldn't be doing this. This is not what I want. We are saying, can you do this? Oh yes, well done, thank you. That was perfect. I'm going to reinforce you for this. So it's just a pause in your communication. So it's much nicer than any other problematic situation that we are actually telling the dog that they were wrong, that was not nice, and maybe even scaring them when you do that. So there is another way to do this, which is basically just redirecting, which is a little bit of the same thing, but the name is not. The LRR is a very specific procedure, and this one is not a procedure, it's just a concept, right? So if my dog is barking at me, Marvin decides that wants to bark at me while I'm working, what I normally do is I talk to him. What is it, puppy? What's happening? What do you want? Right? I'm not saying, shh, shut up, putting some treats down. I'm not ignoring his needs and his necessities. I'm looking at him and asking, did I miss something here? Are you hungry? Do you need to have a pee? Do you need attention? Do you need me? What do you need? Right? And when I do that, I'm first of all observing, which is something really important that sometimes we forget to do. And I'm listening. And my dog is feeling that he has my attention. He doesn't have to escalate his behavior. He doesn't have to jump, to bite, to bark. He just did once and he got my attention. And I'm asking him, how can I help you? And this is, for me, the best way to solve the situation, right? And after you ask this question, you need to come back to planning. And this is essential, because otherwise you're going to keep having this over and over and over again. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to come back and plan. When I realize what he wants, I will think, oh, forgot to give his food. He must be hungry. So next time, I'm going to go 5 minutes before and go and give some food. Or maybe I will give him more food at lunchtime. Or could it be that I'm gonna do some training around how to ask for food? Maybe I'm gonna put a button down. I'm gonna ask him to click the button, and then every time he does that, he gets food. I'm gonna always plan in order to not have a problem again, so I don't have to punish my dog or think about how I will behave if my dog doesn't behave how I want him to do. And this is the important part. Solving the problem after it happens is short-term solution. So if I have a problem, and my solution comes after that, this is definitely short term. But if I have a problem and I plan, I solve it. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope it wasn't too difficult, too technical. Let me know in the comments what are the things that you guys are planning to implement and what are gonna be your redirecting strategy. I'm gonna love to hear from you. I really want to know how you're using this information and what are the information that most stick with you